Welcome to Greg Talks to People, the only show where it looks like I know how to interact with humans. On today's show, we have a man who just posted his 250th interview with Con Man from Tom Talks Rubbish. It's Tom. Welcome to the show, sir.
Why, thank you, good sir. Thank you for having me. I'm not gonna lie and say, once I saw you were doing this, I was like, I gotta get on this show. But I was very much like, if he wants to have me, I'd love to flip the script, if you know what I mean.
I mean, that's exactly what we're doing. You are typically the one doing the interviews. I just started doing the show maybe 2 months ago. So it's nice to get into a rhythm with it. And, I just brought up that you've done 250 different interviews for your channel, Tom Talks Rubbish, with me being two of them. So,
Mhm.
with that said, how did you get started doing these interviews?
Pandemic, to be honest. I
Mhm.
needed the first, because I don't know how it worked in the States, but we were quarantined, locked down, stay at home order, whatever word you want to use,
Mhm.
3 times in the UK because it just
Wow.
kept spreading and everything. And the first one, I was a depressed mess because I've told this story a few times, but it was, guess what? The week quarantine gets announced, the next week is my 21st birthday.
Mhm.
So we're basically told, nope, you can't go to this club, you can't do this. So I spent a lot of time in my pajamas watching trash TV and just not being very motivated. And then during the second one, so this is about January of 2021, Christmas of 2020, I started posting my what I'd call talking head videos, which are just like any topic I felt like talking about. That's where the name comes from. Tom Talks Rubbish. I'd just be like, let's talk about that. Whether it's the movie that I'd seen that day, the TV programs I like, things like that. But then the interviews, and this is a long-winded way of telling this story. I do apologize, man. But the interviews came about in sort of May of 2021. I interviewed my former carer who had moved away during the pandemic. He didn't break any rules or anything, but and then didn't break any rules before anyone starts, in the comments. Do you know what I mean, Greg?
Mhm.
And that I just found I like talking to people. I like talking to people. And then in the wrestling sphere, I stuck up this video in, it must have been July of 2021, being like, if the world works out, this is 10 people I'd like to interview. And Adam Pacitti, formerly of Cultaholic, was on that list. And for whatever reason, he saw that video and was like, yeah, I'll help you. I didn't know how Zoom worked at the time. I didn't know how, what's the word, connecting things worked, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Mhm.
So he was like, I'll help you, I'll edit it. And please don't go back and watch that interview, guys. I do not like that interview. I don't know, have you watched it out of interest?
I'll tell you, I've watched so much content, it's not popping up at the top of my brain. But now that you say that, I kind of feel like I have to check it out just for
Mm.
posterity purposes.
It's very much like shouting at the man, didn't have a full match, generic wrestling questions wasn't a thing. It's like Adam is the one interview that, and I know he doesn't do a lot in the wrestling space these days, but like Adam is the one interview that I'm like, I'd love to, if I get that one, I almost feel like it'd be a full circle moment. And I'm not saying I could end the show, but I'd be like, okay, like where do we go from here? If that makes sense.
Mhm.
That's a long-winded way of telling that story. I do apologize, Greg.
No, there's nothing wrong with being long-winded. I mean, that's the entire point of this show is to learn about other people and talk to them. So, um, since you mentioned the Adam Pacitti interview, I want to ask, has there been anybody that you've interviewed that has been difficult in any way, whether it be, the interview just didn't flow, there was tough time scheduling, or has it been pretty easy going for the most part?
Very lucky. I feel very lucky that like everyone I've interviewed has been good people. Very good, with like we talked about, not to put Greg on blast, we were supposed to record this last week, but
That's true.
The universe had other plans because Greg's power went out, right? If you want to edit that out, buddy, I fully appreciate that.
No, I mean, listen, I've talked about my divorce on this channel. Like I am a very open book. So yeah, for context purposes, I was actually supposed to interview Tom for or last week when we're recording this, and I lost power for 2 days, as did a lot of the Pittsburgh area, and some of them were still going on past 2 days, like 3, 4 days without power because we had such heavy winds. So, I mean, that's kind of how the way it goes. It was kind of unavoidable, but
But anyway, that brings me to my point of like, I will never be that guy that's like, sorry, dude, I've just woke up and my kid's sick. Can we reschedule? I'll never be that guy that's like, you agreed to do my podcast. Like, why are we having to I will never be that guy, particularly when in 2024, before I moved into this place, I was in such a bad mental space. I sent you a clip. Podcasting saved my life.
yeah.
And when I was in that bad of a mental space and I was rescheduling, I was sort of pushing interviews away. How the hell can I say to people, why are we having to reschedule? Do you know what I'm saying?
hmm it's one of those things where you have to treat people the way you want to be treated. Like it's the golden rule: treat
No,
people as you want to be
definitely.
treated. And if you treat people terribly and you don't understand their situation, let me put out a little story. Like back in 2019, 2020, like I had to shut down my social media completely because
Mm.
like I got hacked and there was just bad stuff out there. When I came back in 2020, I was I had a little situation where admittedly I was in the wrong and I was just kind of like arrogantly spouting off about like my trivia title and trying to get on Quizlemania. I was going about it the wrong way completely.
Uh-huh.
So it was actually Sean Ross Sapp who like kind of course corrected me, not just for wrestling, but for like how to treat people in general. It's like, okay, wait a minute. What I'm doing is not right. I need to be kinder. I need to like react to people and say, okay, like I need to understand your situation better before like I place myself above your situation. You know what I mean?
Oh
I'm
yeah,
probably not.
definitely.
Yeah, I'm not
Definitely.
phrasing this properly, but
No, you are, man, which is why
okay.
I will never be that guy that's like, okay, we've rescheduled this 3 times now. When is this going
Mhm.
to happen? I will never be that guy. I'm just grateful for everyone that wants to come on. It's like, I feel very lucky to peel the curtain back, Greg. And this sounds like a humble brag, but like, we recorded our interview in December, our latest one.
It, December or early January. It might be. Yeah, was it before Christmas? I'm trying to
I'm
remember.
not sure, but the point I was trying to make is like I only edit this past like last week. Do you know what I
Hmm
mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm very lucky that I backlog, and that's the other reason I'm very lucky that people say yes all the time. Do you know what I mean? I'm
hmm
very lucky, and that is not lost on me how lucky I am with this channel.
That's fantastic. Now, with posting these interviews, I want to know because I haven't seen anybody personally go after you for any reason, but have you gotten any negativity from the people who have watched your videos and because there's negativity out there everywhere. Have you experienced that?
Kind of, but not any that's made me want to deactivate my social media and hide away. I've had
Right.
a few of people that were trying to start a podcast and just being like, why did you get so and so? I've tried for months. You know what I mean? And I've had a few like you can say what you want about my looks. I know I'm not an attractive man. Do you know what I mean? I've had
Hey, give
the
yourself some credit.
but you know what I'm saying, don't you? Like I know
Yeah.
my flaws. Like this is my armor, man. Like I know my flaws. You don't have to point them out. I've had the classic. Oh, what's this guy doing? This guy's put on weight since I checked out his interviews and things like that. But no, it doesn't bother me. And a big reason for that, Greg, is I took social media off my phone when I moved into my own place.
Mhm.
I don't have any apps on my phone apart from I don't know if this is a thing in America, but WhatsApp.
Yeah. WhatsApp. I've used WhatsApp before. Mhm.
WhatsApp is a thing in America. Okay. I
Yes.
literally have that on my phone, but that's it. I don't have Twitter. I don't have Instagram. I don't have TikTok. I don't have anything like that. So I don't see the negativity. and it's almost like, okay, I'm good. I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna post. The main reason I do these interviews, Greg, is because I enjoy them. It's never
Hmm.
about, oh, I want to interview so and so. Like, I also feel like, and this is going down a complete different rabbit hole, but we're here now. I feel
Yeah.
like for the longest time I approached my podcast wrong. For me, success only came. I would only feel successful if I got specific people when I first started. But now I just feel successful. The fact that I know you asked this question later, but something I'm really proud of is like we haven't missed a week since I started in July of 2021.
That's impressive.
So yeah, I'm really proud of that. But I keep interrupting you. I do apologize, man.
No, listen, this show is to learn about you. You are free to tell your story. I'm not here to, interrupt and provide my content. This show is about you today. So now I've mentioned before, you interviewed a bevy of people in the wrestling community. Now, some of the people that you've interviewed, admittedly, have controversy surrounding them in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And because there are people on Twitter, and I've seen this a lot this week and last week, it's just been hellacious on social media. So, quite frankly, you not having social media on your phone, you're smarter than I am, friend.
Yeah.
Um, but were you ever worried about people coming after you because you had a certain person on your show?
So I'll use this specific person as an example. JDMY. I was very like, what am I gonna get? Am I gonna get the shock jock JDMY, or am I gonna get the human J? Am I gonna get I can't think of his shoot name now, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Am I gonna get the human? And I feel very lucky we got the human side of Jay that day, and it really
Hmm.
feels like I'm proud of that interview in some ways because it showed the human side of him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there are people that I think this isn't going to do well, but again, because I don't spend my time scrolling and things like that, it there are people that I think, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that one, but it's almost like, okay, I interviewed them because I wanted to interview them and I wanted to show a different side of them. There are times that I think, I don't want to. I just won't bring up too controversial things because I don't want this to turn into a Greg shoots on like the way we handled your
Yeah.
divorce conversation. Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
was very thing with you and I said, look, how much do you want to talk about? Did I not?
You did. You said, "Do you want to talk about this?" And like, I respect that. I respect the fact that you at least you'll bring it up and say, "We don't have to talk about that," and that's perfectly fine. To have a level of comfortability with your guest is very important.
Mm. So that's the thing. Like, there are people that I think, no, I don't think I'd want to touch them because it's too controversial. But there are also, I find that the most controversial people online are the sweetest people offline, if that makes sense. It's all a bit like you say, politics is a work.
Yep.
I almost want a t-shirt that says social media don't work.
I mean, it's very true. Um, Now, has there been a favorite moment across all the content that you've done that you can point to and be like, "That's my favorite thing I've ever done"?
Yes, and it has nothing to do with me or my show. It is. Do you know who the Between Two Beards crew are?
Yeah. Mhm.
JPJ and Pluggo of Love
Yep.
Wrestling.
Yep. I've
So,
talked with JPJ. I've had Pluggo on Luck of the Draw, actually. So,
oh,
yeah.
wonderful, wonderful. But they'd always said to me, dude, we got, because they'd done pre-recorded stuff with me. They'd done, like, I was their Thanksgiving episode last 1 year because they needed pre-recorded content so they didn't miss. But they always
Mhm.
said to me, dude, if you're up one night, because their show airs at like 1 in the morning my time,
Right.
if you're ever up, please pop on. And this one night, me and my carer had gone to a comedy club and I'd had a few bevies, shall we say. And I was still up. And I text, it was either Plug or JPJ, I can't remember which one. But it was like, I said, still up if you guys need a guest. And they're like, yeah, of course, do. So anyway, What ends up happening? We end up talking about Punk, and this is right after Brawl In, if you know what I mean. This is right
Yeah.
after Brawl In, so we end up talking about that, and then Sean Ross Sapp does a run in. So I'm there, and this is during the height of his Shazza McKenzie feud
Yeah.
with that stuff. So I'm listening to an interview with him, and then because of who Shazza McKenzie worked for at the time, she was quite big with Love Wrestling. Spencer Love of Love Wrestling comes on and is they're sort of feuding, and I've just got a front row seat. And then to pop it off as well, this is during the week that my Jimmy Van interview was going to drop.
Oh, there you
It
go.
was my big exclusive. Like
Hmm.
Jimmy had never done a podcast like that, but I owe Sean a lot of credit, and I'll tell that story in a second if you don't mind.
Oh, that's fine.
And literally, as I'm about to go, look, guys, I'm really sorry, I'm tired, I'm gonna tap out now. The guys were like, yeah, bye bye. Like that's fine, man. We'll talk to you another time. And I'm thinking great. And then Sean just goes, before you go, Tom, guys, go subscribe to Tom Talk Cherry because he's got an exclusive interview with Jimmy Van dropping the tomorrow. And I'm like, wait, what? How the hell why would he do that? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I love Sean for that. I know Sean gets a lot of flack for a lot of the stuff he does and his social media usage. Quite frankly, like I back Sean with that stuff because I see the way people come after him,
Oh
and
yeah.
like that kind of stuff affects his job. Like I don't think people put two and two together. Like that's what he does for a living. So to constantly question his credibility, question his integrity, and stuff like that, to me, it's ridiculous and a waste of time, quite frankly.
Couldn't agree more, my friend. Couldn't agree more.
Um, Now, with doing the content creation, doing the interviews, do you still have an ultimate goal that you're chasing for doing this?
Not really. This is a hard one to answer because I achieved my ultimate goal, which was to have a conversation with Chris Van Vliet. You know what I mean? And that
I'm
was
still trying.
dude. He'll do your show. He'll do it. He'll get there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Chris was the one that I was like, if I he was the top of my bucket list on that video I mentioned that had the Cultaholic crew as bucket list.
Hmm.
And to achieve that, was it last year or the year before? I'm trying to think now. No, it was the year before. Wow, time is a flat circle. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, to achieve that, that's almost like yeah, you can walk away now. But also, we talked a lot about, and I'm assuming we'll talk mental health in a second, but like podcasting saved my life, man.
Hmm.
And that to me is the ultimate goal. I'm still here. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep. I know exactly what you're saying. So, with that said, what do you want your legacy to be? If you want to have a legacy in content
Stealing
creation, what would
my
you want that to be?
questions.
I mean, a little bit. Like I get to turn the tables on you somehow.
My legacy, and I told this during I don't know if you managed to check out this episode. Last year for my birthday, I got Benville of Wrestling Life. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Mm, I'm not, but
Great podcast. Make sure you go check out Benville's work, guys. He's very good at what he does. Anyway, I got him to interview me because I'd never told my wrestling story. And we were talking about my legacy. And I said, like, my legacy is I've shown that there's more than the Dave Meltzers, the Brian Alvarez's out there. I've given light to, I'll use you as an example. I've given light to you. I've given light
mhm,
to man. I've given light to smaller creators, big creators. I'm just proud of the fact that I'm able to have these conversations, my friend.
there you go. Now we talked about this before we start recording. Normally, I do a word association game where you get to talk about a few people, but you've done so many interviews with so many different people. I want to give you the floor. You can go as long as you
All I
want.
ask you to do is just throw names out there, Greg, because I will need help with just throwing some names out there, please.
All right. Well, we just talked about him, Sean Rossap.
Misunderstood and a good guy.
Let's go with Chris Van Vliet.
Go the gold standard.
All right. I'll throw out JD from New York because we talked about him earlier.
Misunderstood again. I know I use that one for Sean, but very much
Yeah.
like a human behind a, I don't want to say a character, but a human behind content, shall we say. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And like a lot of, they say the perception is reality with a lot of things. And it's hard to determine how people actually feel through social media because not everybody wears their heart on their sleeve.
Oh yeah.
Um, so now I'll throw a con man since you just interviewed him.
This is hard. I used to play this game with certain guests. This is hard. It's just like, again, a good guy, just somebody that like, to peel the curtain back. I emailed Combat 3 years ago to get him on
Mhm.
the show, and it wasn't until he was looking for an old email account. He went, "Dude, I'm so sorry. I've only just seen this, but I'd love to do your show." And I was like, okay, cool. But if you watch that interview, like I'm proud of that interview because it's 250 and just proud of it in general. But like I'm very nervous to start off with because every technical problem that could have happened before we started recording that interview. I was late because I was coming home from family dinner. The
Yep.
computer wouldn't turn on. The microphone wouldn't connect. Do you see where I'm going with this? So
Yeah.
just a
Oh, it happens to the best of us.
so just a sweetheart of a guy and just a really good guy.
Let's throw out SP3 since he's been on the show as well.
Again, the the way I'll phrase it with SP3 is just my friend because we don't just talk about wrestling. He'll check in with me. He'll check in to see how I was like during that bad 2024, which hopefully we'll talk about in a second if that's all right, Greg.
That's fine.
Um, during that bad 2024 when I really wasn't focusing on the content and stuff, he checked in with me and not just to say, "Do you want to do an interview?" He was very much like, "Are you okay?"
I mean, SP3 has been truly, I've known this for years. He's been one of the kindest people in social media. Absolute, like, I have nothing bad to say about him. He's just so great. Um, let's talk about somebody who's was just recently on the Greg Cherry show, Juice Springsteen.
Hmm. Again, a young man who, when the Dave Meltzers and that have retired and things like that, I could see him taking over because he learned from the
Wow.
best. Do you know what I mean? He
Yeah, he's
learned from
great.
the best. He's been under the learning tree of what's it? Justin Labar. He's been under the
Mm-hmm.
learning tree of Andrew Badal. I always say his name wrong.
Baydala, yeah.
Adela. That's it. He's been under that learning tree. So a young man that with great potential is what I'll say on that one.
Uh, I'm basically just scrolling your interviews and picking out names. John Alba.
Real media inside wrestling media, and you'll understand what I mean if you watch that interview. Because the headline from that interview was me saying to him, because he'd been like not debating leaving wrestling media. That's the wrong word, but he was very big on this needs to happen within wrestling media for wrestling media to be on the par of baseball media, for example. So I
Mm-hmm.
remember asking him that question, and that's a short actually on my channel that you guys should check out if you want to be a content creator because I really like that short.
There you go. Miss Kate Fabe, who you interviewed a while back.
Again, this sounds self-indulgent, but a lovely person who is welcome back on the show anytime she wants.
Kate's wonderful. Another wonderful person who I just had an interview with, Auntie Collins.
Wrestling's auntie. Like me and her always get on. It's like I don't know if she does it with you because you're around a similar age, but like she always texts me like another person within that 2024 period that was like, "Are you okay? Are you in a good place?" Because I think there was a how do I word this, Greg? You're good with words, but like a misconception that I was still in a good place because we didn't miss a week, if that makes sense.
Hmm. I mean, people think you're doing fine when everything just looks normal, but like behind the scenes, and like I spoke about this with you, it's when life gets hard, you feel it, and not everybody sees that necessarily.
Exactly that. So another person that was like, everyone else might think you're okay, but talk to me. Like I know something's going on, and like I spilled my guts to her one night. I'm not gonna lie.
All right, last one for this segment, and then if you want to speak about anybody else, you can. A guy I was on Quizlemania with, Brian Zane.
Me, if I achieve what I want to achieve, and what I mean by that is like, yeah, I've said I've done my ultimate goal, but like everybody says me and Brian have very similar wrestling minds and very similar humor and things like that. And
Mm,
everybody says to me, like, you should do a lot of Brian Zane content because I think you'd be really good at it. And like me
yeah.
and him are very similar. Me and him talk quite regularly. Me and him are friendly, and the one big wrestling media personality that I've had on that I've maintained a, because this sounds like I'm knocking people and I'm not, Greg. So
Mm.
please don't take this out of, but with the big people, it's very much like, oh yeah, I did your podcast, but we don't, you know, we
No,
don't.
I understand.
Whereas Brian was another guy that during that 2024 checked in with me, did this, was like, just fire up your Xbox, dude. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So was telling me advice and things like that. And another guy that's just been very good to me.
Now, is there anybody else that you want to cover? Because again, you've interviewed a lot of people. Is there
I'm
anybody
just
else
going
you
to
want to
cover
speak?
this guy because he is my mentor. Dom Smith of Soundsphere and WrestleSphere. I need to
Okay.
connect you two because I think you two would do some good work together. I'm not going to lie to you. But
All right.
Dom Smith has been my mentor, because he has the same medical needs as me, cerebral palsy. And
Hmm.
he's a guy that goes to events. He does this, he does that, and it's like I can do that too because I've seen him do it. Does that make sense?
Hmm. It does. All right, Tom. I've had the pleasure of being interviewed by you twice, and I'm glad I could turn the tables for this episode and interview you for a change. So, for anybody who's not familiar with your work, where can they find you?
So you can find me on. I'll send Greg links and all that because I know how social media works.
Hmm.
Twitter. Actually, let me do what I do on my show. Twitter/X at Tom Talks Rubbish and Tom Talks Rubbish on YouTube, where we interview the greats in wrestling media, the smaller channels, the big channels. I just like talking wrestling with good people, my friend, and you are definitely one of them.
I appreciate that. And thank you so much for joining us, sir. Go check out all of Tom's social media and his YouTube channel, Tom Talks Rubbish, where you can see his interviews with so many great people, not just the people I listed. There's just so many good people that you've spoken with. And thank you all for watching this episode of Greg Talks to People. You can find me on all social media at Greg Cherry Brand. And until next time, be kind to each other.